Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, along with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, for another Monday Matters. Jen, we're stepping into November. You know, Oklahoma is one of those places where fall is usually my favorite time of the year. But I've been looking at the weather up north where you guys are. It's a little cooler.
Yeah.
But we're recording this actually before November, so I can't even predict what the weather's going to be like up there. But how's fall right now for you?
It's gorgeous. It is so my favorite time of year. And we talked about this in a previous episode, but I like to go back to my hometown, and it's the prettiest time of year. And I always tell my dad, "Oh, it's so gorgeous here. It's amazing." And he's like, "Well, yeah, but that's because it's October." And there's a lot of work that goes into making this place look like it does right now. So zip it, basically, is what he says. But it is a beautiful time of year.
Oh yeah. We tend to we show up. My brother, my older brother, his name is Jesse. He is retired, but he also helps a neighbor combine and bring in the harvest. And so he's been sending me photos of bringing in the harvest as they wrap up that time of the year too. Speaking of work, Jen, this week we wanted to set on a conversation that you shared in one of your principal problem newsletters, which, by the way, I'm just enjoying so much, about leaders as Swiss Army knives. And so I just wanted to just sit on this today because I think sometimes maybe leaders don't recognize the extraordinary skills that they have in this work that they do. But take us there for a few minutes.
Right. Well, this was my little finger shake at principals to remember the privilege of their jobs and how incredibly qualified they are to do it. But to get there, I did start with an image of a Swiss Army knife. I don't know, Will, about the first time you ever saw one, but my grandfather pulled one out of his pocket. I was probably 8, and he started pulling out each of these tools: the scissors, the screwdriver, the knife, the tweezers, the poker thing. I could not believe it. I can still see it in his hands. He had these massive, gigantic, beautiful hands, and it was bright red, this knife. And I thought, why would anyone need anything else? Do you happen to remember the first time you saw a Swiss Army knife?
I was probably in grade school, but yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure my son Jack has more than one. They're just the
Right,
coolest
right,
ever. Yeah.
right. Well, they're amazing tools. And so I was thinking about having a tool that can do so many things. And then I made that connection. We've talked about this before, but I spent a weekend in Oregon working with rural principals. And boy, these principals have a lot going on. They have a lot going on. The same things that all principals deal with, but very unique to their region, their demographic. They're really worried about funding. They're really worried about special education, about mental health services. And the thing about them is many of them work alone. As a matter of fact, one attendee at this conference has less than 30 kids in his entire K-12 district. So he teaches PE, he teaches science, he is the principal, and he's the superintendent. So he has a lot going on. And, I was sitting there thinking about them all and how, why would anybody want to be a principal? And then I remembered why. The same reason any of us want to. I remember my first getting my job as a principal and feeling a little bit of that imposter syndrome, but then forcing myself to remember that I had been chosen for this job and somebody thought that I could do it. And then since then, I've tried to remind principals that there's a sense of honor to this work, and there's a lot of things we get to do that other people don't. So before I go into that, I want to pause and give you a chance to reflect.
No, I'm so glad you're saying all this, Jen, because I mean, I've said this before, but one of the reasons that I chose to do this work, which is create Principal Matters and create content for leaders and share the stories of leaders, is because I'll never forget that first moment when, as an assistant principal, I was invited to a national conference and was sitting in a room with leaders from probably every state in America, because this was one of those, like, everybody had sent a leader who was getting an award from a different state, and they were letting us do collaboration around tables. And I mean, I had always loved collaborating with my leaders in my schools and where I lived, but then like the light bulb moment for me was just like, oh my gosh, we're all so alike, even though our schools are so different. My friend in Connecticut has such a different school than my friend in Oregon, but but we're still dealing with a lot of the same issues and problems. And then the other light bulb moment for me was like, wow, we're also like managing some of the most like difficult or um, challenging situations that most people in normal jobs would be like, maybe once in my life I would have that
Right.
experience, but leaders can face them almost daily.
That's right.
And so for me, the light bulb moment was also like, not only do we share a lot of the same practices and challenges, but we also are having these experiences that are so unique to leaders that they're really unsung heroes. And so
Right.
and so I wanted to have a way to share their stories with each other and to connect us together so that we realize we're not alone.
Right.
But you're right, Jen. It's a strong school leader is such a gift, but they are also, I like to call them the hats different leaders wear, but I love this image of the utility knife, the
Right.
Swiss Army
Right.
knife, because it's the same thing. I mean, sometimes you have to pull out the knife of coaching, sometimes you have to pull out
Right.
the piece of being a good counselor, sometimes you have to pull out the disciplinary one,
Right.
sometimes you have to pull out the manager role. And so there's all these different responsibilities that leaders face, and research shows it too, but you and I think are so connected to practice. So, talk a little bit about the different pieces of that Swiss Army knife that you see
Right.
leaders wearing.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to do that right after I say one other thing,
Yeah.
which is I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I have at times pulled out one piece of my utility knife and realized it was the wrong one. I've been in meetings before where I've thought, oh, I need to just listen.
Hmm.
Or, oh, I think they need me to lead right now. I think they need me to make a decision. And so
Uh-huh.
you can go into a room with one mindset and then realize, oh, there's a different role I need to play. I wasn't understanding my role. So that's critical too, is to know which tool to use, yes, but to know when to put away the wrong tool and get another one. So let's think about some of the things that we get to do as principals that others don't. And I think the biggest one sounds a little cliche, but it's so true, is shape the vision, right? The tone of your building, the direction that your entire school community is going to go. So that's number one, shape a vision. Create a wider impact. Everybody that I've ever known for all of time who's gone into a principal role has had somebody say, well, aren't you going to miss the kids? And the answer to that is, well, I hope to make more of an impact on more of them. And I think that's really, really true. I just had that conversation with our new EL director. We were talking about missing kids, those closer relationships with students that we had as teachers. But when you're influencing 200, 400, 800, 2,000 kids as a principal, it really does, expand that impact. Just a few more. Elevate teachers. You get to develop, mentor, and empower the educators you lead. You get to embrace a dynamic environment. My mom always tells me this: you have no day that's the same as the one before. It's so true. Never a boring day, ever. You get to lead a whole community, be that central figure. And as you said, sometimes feel like a superhero a little bit. And then there's just that sense of accomplishment. And I would challenge any listener to make sure you're taking time on your drive home or on your walk at night with the dog to live in that sense of satisfaction a little bit in seeing the amazing things about your school.
Wow. Jen, what I love about these takeaways is just um, that image of being able to step into whatever that scenario is with classrooms or teachers or families and recognize that you often do have skill sets where the solution to apply will depend on the situation in front of you.
Right.
Um,
Right. I stopped by to see a school not too long ago, and there was some trouble, right? There was some behavior issues. The teachers were struggling with those behavior issues. And so we were kind of brainstorming. And then I said, "Hey, let's go walk around and kind of think this through." I love walking and talking. Well, we stopped into a classroom where the students were dissecting sheep brains. And you have never seen so many engaged students. The teacher was on fire. They were doing all these amazing things. And it was just a reminder. I said, tonight when you go home, Katie, and you're thinking about this bad behavior stuff, think about the sheep brains too. Like, this is cool. This is really neat stuff. So, that sense of accomplishment, even on hard days, you can reach for it and find it.
oh, I love that so much. Um, well, Jen, as we wrap up this conversation, I also just want to acknowledge that this time of the year is that, and we talked about this in our last Monday Matters, but I think it's worth talking about. This is that time of year where you are doing the hard work, you're looking at that next break, and showing up every day. And means something's going to happen that's going to be probably more difficult too than you imagined. I was just on the
Right.
call yesterday with a experienced, talented leader who was just admitting, I'm facing some situations right now that I don't know what to do next. The challenge of this child in my 20 plus years of experience is a new scenario for me. And I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this child or this parent or in this situation. And so I just want to say that out loud because that Swiss Army knife, you may sometimes step in a moment, you're like, oh, I don't have a
Yeah.
tool for this. This
Right.
is a new one for
Right.
me. And so I'm just curious, any thoughts you have about leaders that feel like, well, I know I'm supposed to be the Swiss Army knife, but I don't feel like I maybe have the tool for this
Right.
one.
Right. Well, this is so basic, but it so works too, is ask for help. I mean, Will, I am not exaggerating. There is not a day that goes by that I probably don't reach out and phone a friend at least 5 times.
Mhm.
Sometimes I think I know the right tool to use. I think I know the answer, but I want to be sure. Or I want someone to say, "Oh my gosh, we just had that last week. Here's how you should not handle it." Asking for help, because the enemy to feeling success, I think, is feeling alone. Like, you have to make sure that you don't feel like you're operating the entire utility knife all by yourself.
Well, I agree. And I would just say to any leader out there that is facing that situation that maybe you don't have that skill yet or you haven't figured that solution out, um, reaching out to others and saying, I need help is such a gesture of courage.
Right.
But it's also just, for me, it's always the reminder that we are still learners too. You're never going to get to a place where you arrive with all the answers. And if you think you figured it all out, then you need to practice some humility. And if you do think you figured it out and you actually stay in the work, you'll be humbled anyway because you're gonna face something
Right.
that you haven't faced before too. But yeah, asking for help, and then I think also sometimes for me too, I just have to imagine. What is it if I could imagine the ideal outcome that I wanted, what would that look like? And then how do I keep moving that direction even if it seems like nothing I'm doing is working yet? How do I keep moving that direction? Because I just want to say this to leaders. When teachers are on the other side of you, and I was actually trying to encourage this leader this way too. When teachers are on the other side of you, they go home with their stories at night too. And we've all been in places where the stories are, I wish somebody could have come alongside me and supported me more, or I wish somebody wouldn't have left me alone, or I wish somebody would have understood the
Right.
dilemma I'm facing, or I wish somebody would have protected me. And as I was listening to this leader in particular talk about this problem, I was just reminding this leader that I just based on all the things you're telling me, that teacher's not telling that story when they,
Right, right.
because you're still you're still stepping into it, stepping into it to try to find the solution together that maybe isn't right in front of you yet, but it will be eventually.
That's right. That's
And
right.
then, at the end of that process, guess what? She'll have another tool to add to that Swiss Army
That's right.
knife.
That's right.
That
We
wasn't.
have a lot of tools. We do. We're amazing. We are amazing.
Well, Principal Matters listeners, I just want to encourage you as you're stepping into whatever you are. And Jen, I'm pulling this. I'm going to quote you as you wrapped up your newsletter on that Swiss Army knife. You said, "Pull out your Swiss Army knife and use it to be versatile and durable and unflappable." I love that because it's just a reminder that man, you're doing good work. And so be encouraged. Jen, how can listeners stay connected with you and your content?
Yep, they can find me at jenschwanke.com, and at that website they can get a hold of me. First of all, send me an email, or they can find my newsletter, and then they'll get a little treat in their mailbox every Tuesday morning.
You sure will. And you can find all of the resources for this podcast in our show notes at williamdparker.com or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And I just want to say thank you if you're listening to this as a regular listener. We love learning together with you. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to reach out to either Jen or me at our websites, or you can just send us a quick email at will@williamdparker.com or jen@jenschwanke.com. See, I've memorized it.
There you go.
But until next time, thanks for doing what matters, and we'll talk to you soon.